How's it going? Bowman here with another episode of Esports Meditation, and today we're going to be talking about mental toughness and what that means as a player going into those high stress situations. A lot of things we're going to cover today whether you're a pro player, whether you're a new player, are going to be techniques and training tips to actually increase your mental toughness so you can perform better mentally in those high pressure situations. So we're going to cover first concentration and focus. And concentration and focus, what I mean by this is, like, I believe it was Aaron Rodgers who talked about being able to put 100% of his mental facility into receiving the snap, backpedaling, looking out at the receivers, doing his check down process, and then 100% concentration in throwing the perfect pass, into throwing the perfect spiral at the angle and the speed that his receiver will be able to catch it and to avoid the defender. And each of those tasks, he's mentally trained himself to put 100% of his mental facility into those tasks. And that's what we're going to try to teach you today, is little things like that, and learning routines and self-control and ignoring the negative thoughts and prioritizing your thinking. And all these tips and techniques will help you become a better player in those high-stress situations, in those matches. So concentration and focus. We're going to actually ironically talk about a meditation training technique as far as learning how to first assess how you are able to concentrate on a single thought, a single task, and then to assess how long you can do that for, and then learn how to extend that period. Because the longer you're able to concentrate on a single task, the more effective you will be in those moments where you need to have that 100% concentration in order to be successful. So meditation technique is, first you want to find a dark room, quiet room, and you want to have some sort of timing device with you, whether it's a watch, whether it's your phone with a stopwatch or an actual stopwatch. It doesn't matter, as long as you're able to keep track of how long you're able to mentally focus. And what I want you to do is you want to sit down in this quiet, dark room, close your eyes, and right when you start the timer, only focus on your breathing. Inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. And the moment you have a stray thought, like, maybe I should have tacos for dinner, maybe I should talk to my girlfriend after this, is this stupid? The moment you have a stray thought, stop the timer and see how long it is. And I guarantee you, in the beginning, it's going to be abysmal, like 2-3 seconds, maybe 10 seconds if you've already got some good concentration and focus ability. But it's going to be abysmal, and don't let that discourage you, because what you want to do then is challenge yourself to get that time as long as possible. Be able to focus only on your breathing, inhaling, exhaling, and you don't have to breathe fast or slow or hum or anything like that, because actually humming would defeat the purpose as well, because now you're focusing on two tasks, and that's not the point of the training. Focus on breathing in and out, and try to challenge yourself to grow your time over time. And again, this doesn't take very long. This will maybe take 5 to 10 minutes a day, and it's not something you have to focus on for an hour or 2 hours at a time, but just mentally training your brain to have that singular focus is the point of this training. And by doing that, you're going to be able to apply that capability, and that mental capability of concentration to those moments in game, to where when you need to focus on the entry frags, focus on clearing a site, focus on a certain combo in a fighting game, focus on that one-on-one duel in the middle of League of Legends, in the mid lane or something like that. Like, having those moments of concentration gives you a step up over your opponents who don't have that mental toughness. So that's a quick technique on how to learn that. The next thing is ignoring negative thoughts. Now, negative thoughts obviously come from everywhere. Externally, your players, your coaches, your fans, the negative thoughts happen. But the most harmful negative thoughts that happen, and we're all guilty of this, are the internal negative thoughts. Like, I can't hit anything. I can't land my skill shots. I just screwed up that combo. Those mental negative thoughts that just erode at your focus and your concentration. Learning to ignore those and understand that basically those excuses are stupid and they're a waste of time. They're not going to benefit you in any way. So being able to just, okay, I had that thought, and throw it away immediately matters. And like Dick DeVenzio said, a successful person is not one who has found the right set of circumstances, but rather one who has developed the right set of attitudes. And that's huge when trying to ignore negative thoughts, because training yourself to throw out those mental thoughts, especially mid-game, especially if like you're an in-game leader where you went for to execute on the A site in Counter-Strike, and everything went wrong to where the other opponent had a huge clutch situation where he killed your entry fragger, he killed the secondary entry fragger, and then he followed up and killed your opper who was trying to peek from Palace or something like that. And it's just, it's one of those situations where, yeah, you got outplayed, and it sucks, and it's demoralizing. But understanding that play's done and over with, you got to forget it, you got to move on, and you got to just go to the next play, go to the next plan, and throw those mental thoughts out, because you know what? He got lucky. Good job. He had a great play. Those happen. Next time, let's have a great play on your team. So refocusing or ignoring those negative thoughts is huge. Next thing is setting up a routine that your mind defaults to in high stress moments. The military, through basic training, gets ingrains through repetition and repetition through practice and training. So that way, in those high stress moments, you default on your training. So for an esports player, what you want to do is practice what you're going to do in certain situations. As you're entering a site, what angles are you always going to check? What angles are you always going to look for? And getting into a routine so that way when this happens, I do this. When this happens, I do this. If I do this, these are the outcomes that can happen, and I need to take care of it. And setting up that mental routine and practicing it is very, in your practices and on your own, is going to help you actually grow that mental toughness. So that way, when those high clutch situations happen, you don't pause and freak out, and you don't have those moments of self-doubt. You just go and you react because you know what to do. Your mind knows what to do. Your body knows what to do. A part of that is learning self-control as well. I think of it like the check down process for quarterbacks. When you're got multiple receivers running out and you have your primary receiver and they're covered and you can't throw it there, and you check down to the next receiver, and ignoring what you can't control. Like, you can't control that your primary receiver you want to throw to is covered. Like, you can't control if your jungler happens to be in the top lane when you're about to do a gank on the bottom lane as a mid laner, as you're rotating or something like that. You can't control what's happening in the moment. So control on the thing, focus on the things that you can control, and like a check down process is very important. So like if I'm entering the A site on Mirage, we got our smokes just popped. Our entry fragger, just got flashed in by the second entry fragger. Doing that check down process of going, okay, if our entry fragger wins the duel, or if he doesn't win the duel and the secondary fragger, gets that win, the check down process of if this happens, we're going to do this. If this happens, we're going to do this, and just defaulting on that training and controlling what you can control, because it's a high stress situation. So going forward with that is important. Now, another thing to understand is prioritizing your thinking, and there's a 5-step process that what happens. We're going to talk about that transition from one moment to the next moment. So like in Counter-Strike, the transition from one round to the next, as far as prioritizing your thinking in order to get yourself mentally prepared for that next round. In a fighting game, you just at the end of one match, whether you win or lose, that 5-step process to assessing basically what happened and getting yourself back mentally prepared for that next moment. So first is assessing, then forgetting. Assess what happens. Look at quickly look at, okay, our team has this economy. Our team won that round. We didn't win that round. We got 4 kills, we got 3 kills, assessing the situation and then forgetting about it because it's in the past. It's done and over with, but you've taken that quick moment to assess it, so that way you're at least, outwardly aware of where your team sits, but it doesn't matter anymore because it's over. And then your next process is focus on the next play. So you're in this situation. What is your next play? What play are you going to run? Are we going to go after A? Are we going to go after B? Are we going to go after delayed techniques? Are we going to do a split push? Am I going to try to do more aerial attacks? What is your next play? And focus on, how you're going to execute that play in that next situation, in that next round. Your next step, examine the people around you on your team, or examine your opponents. Where's their morale? How well are they executing? Are they off their game that way? And examine that so that way in the play you have to make mental adjustments for those things. And then your fourth step is narrow the focus. Only focus on what matters for that current play. So if you know your entry fragger is struggling, you're probably going to focus on what you're going to do after he loses that duel and you get the follow-up kill or the trade kill from your secondary entry fragger. Focus on the things that are actually going to make that play successful, knowing that the enemy opper plays in a certain position, most rounds, and planning for it accordingly. Only narrowing your focus to the things that you can actually matter and control, and throwing out everything else. And then the last step is let your practice take over. You've probably practiced, entry frags. You've probably practiced, your combo when you're ganking. You've probably practiced your fighting combos over and over again, and just execute it. Let the practice take over. Let your automatic reactions take over in those moments, and ignore that internal debate, that internal doubt. Just go. So again, access then forget. Focus on the next play, examine your team, narrow that focus to what matters for that current play, and then let your training, let your practice take over. So those are techniques. That's the techniques, and as far as prioritizing your thinking in those moments of like in between rounds and going into the next situation, of only if you focus on the things that matter, your play will actually increase and be better because you're ignoring those negative thoughts again. And the last thing and this is a quote from Lindsay Finelli, who's a coach in basketball. Her quote is, just fight through it. There's going to be negative things. There's going to be so much adversity and so many challenges. You may not hit all the headshots. You may not, hit all your skill shots. You may not land all those combos. And know that at the end of the day, you just got to fight through it. You got to look at the overall vision, your overall goal, your overall focus, and fight through those negative things, fight through those tough things mentally, because at the end of the day, you're the only one that's going to affect how successful you are as a player. And so you got to fight through those moments. You got to so you got to learn, how tough are you? Do you control the controllable in your practice? Do you focus on your improvement and development? Or are you always blaming a coach or questioning a teammate? Those questions that pop up in your head, knowing the answers to them ahead of time. Knowing that you can control what you can control and you can't control what you can't control. And then prioritizing what you do. Now, how you apply this to practice, focus on fixing your weaknesses in the practice. You only have to focus on a couple things, but prioritize a few of those things and focus on those weaknesses as you practice through it. So that's my overall on mental toughness, and some tips and tricks and some different techniques as far as becoming a more mentally tough player. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share, like, and favorite this as you see fit, and you all have a wonderful day.